ॐ वाङ् मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्मयेधि वेदस्य म आणीस्तः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासि अनेनाधीतेनाहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ। Om. May my speech be accorded with the mind. May my mind be accorded with the speech. O self-effulgent one Brahman, reveal thyself to me. May you both, speech and mind, be the carriers of the highest truth to me. May not all that I have heard depart from me. May I be able to join day and night through this study. I shall utter what is verbally true. I shall utter what is mentally true. May that Brahman protect me. May that Brahman protect the teacher. May that protect me. May that protect the teacher. Om. Peace, peace, peace be unto you all. Good morning. This morning, I am going to speak on very, very important subject in spiritual life. That is the problem of ethics. And what is Swami Vivekananda's contribution in the field of ethics? We know that the religions of the world all they advised us to be ethical. So morality and ethics is one of the inseparable subject in spiritual life. A spiritual person must be moral, must follow the ethical life. So what is the contribution of Swami Vivekananda in this field? A very substantial, very, very important contribution Swami Vivekananda did in the field of ethics. Unfortunately, it is not well known. Let us see what is Swami Vivekananda's contribution in the global ethics. First of all, we use morality and ethics as a synonym. We do not distinguish the morality and ethics. But morality and ethics are not same. Morality means the way of life, the right or good way of living. But ethics is the study of morality. Ethics says the standard of morality. It evaluates the morality. So, ethics is the science of morality. Morality is the way of life. It is a living. But ethics is a science. It is a study. It is the academic pursuit on morality. Swami Vivekananda's teachings contain both ethics and morality. Swami Vivekananda is considered as a religious leader or spiritual prophet, but his contribution is very significant. Swami Vivekananda asked this question that what are individual ethics based? In his Lahore lecture in 1897, Swami Vivekananda asked this question. He said, I quote, "Every religion preaches that the essence of all morality is to do well to others. But why? Be unselfish. But why should we? Some God has said it. Some texts have declared it. Let them all tell it. And if they do, what is to me? What is the reason that I should be moral?" Swami Vivekananda asked this question. If this question is asked, what would be our answer? It is seen that there are three answers to this question. Number one, we should be moral because we want to be happy. Morality gives us happiness, either in this physical world or in the spiritual world. If we are moral, we will be happy. We will get the blessings, we will get the boon. The second answer is, we should be moral because we will not be punished. Again, the punishment will come either from God or from social structure or from the court, from the judges. If we are not moral, then either the law of the land will punish us or God will punish us. So second theory, second answer of this question, why should we be moral? The second answer is punishment, the fear. We should be moral because we will not be punished. The third answer comes to this question is this: the morality is innate thing. It is inbuilt of a human being. So when we are born, this morality comes with us. It is inbuilt thing. Just for example, why does a person like good? We always like good. We always like beauty. We always support truth. Why do we do that? Why don't we take the bad thing? Why don't we? It is because it is inbuilt. We don't have any other way but to select good thing. Exactly in this similar way, this morality, we are moral. We cannot go otherwise. We have to, it is inbuilt. We are born with this morality and with ethics. This is the third rule. But again, Swami Vivekananda asked this question that what is the basis of that? What is the basis of this? I said, and you have to believe. It is not like that. What is the basis of that? Why are you saying that it is inbuilt, it is coming from inside? What is the basis of good and bad? Swami Vivekananda explained it. He himself gave the answer. But before that, if we think these three questions and answer, we find that there is two distinct groups are there. The first two things is happiness and punishment. We think that this will come from outside. Definitely. Who will give us happiness? If we are moral, from where this happiness will come? God blesses us. So God bless us. The God, it is coming from outside. Who will give the punishment? Either the law of the land or God. So that is also coming from outside. So which is coming from outside? So that's why we think the law of ethics is the external thing. So that is also a set of laws, a set of do's and don'ts. But the third answer, which is the morality, is our innate thing. It is inbuilt. It is in our being. So this concept gives us that it is subjective. It is within us. So distinct two groups in the science of ethics. There are two distinct groups, which is called normative ethics. Generally, the ethics is called normative science. It is not positive science like physics, chemistry, mathematics. It is a normative science. So this normative science, this has two clear divisions. One is called the ethics of doing, and one is ethics of being. What do we do? The happiness and punishment. It depends upon our work. So what we do, our ethical standard depends on that. And the other group is how a person is. It depends upon that. Let us take some example. One is the ethics of doing. So ethics of doing is like that. If I do some humanitarian work, I am doing some humanitarian work, social service, the flood relief, the education relief. So we are doing some voluntary work, humanitarian work. Obviously, this is ethical. So this work has also two things. Number one, how you can evaluate a work. We can evaluate a work from two things, from the result and from the work itself. Let me give some example. We are doing some relief work for flood, for education, for drought. So we are doing some relief work. And what is the effect of it? The result. The result of it is, yes, people are getting the service and they are benefited. So they are happy. So our work is ethical. But if I say that a thief, a robber, they are serving people, They are also donate sometimes. The robber, the thief, they also sometimes do the relief work. And that also give the happiness of plenty of human beings. So, can we say that this is an ethical work? That person is ethical? So here comes two things. The work he is doing, that is ethical, or the result is ethical? In ethical language, the result is called the teleological ethics, and the work itself, whether that is ethical or not, the work itself, that is called deontological ethics, is the name. But another thing is coming, that how this person is, that is the being. So there are three things coming. One, the work, the ethics of work, and another, the ethics of being. And this division, this is the problem of ethics. Nowhere we find that these two divisions are integrated. The ethics of work, again, ethics of work is divided into two parts. One, the result of the work, and the work itself. But here is the problem. These are not proved. Swamiji, actually. Swamiji asked this question, raised this question. As a result, what is work? The result we can judge from the result of the work. This kind of theory was propounded by ancient philosopher Epicurus and Democritus. And afterwards, this kind of theory was propounded by Bentham and Mill, utilitarian concept, happiness of all. So our ethics depends upon the happiness of all. If we can give the happiness of all, that is, then I will become the ethical person. No matter whether I rob from others, whether I snatch and make happiness to all. So here is the fault. Happiness, if we provide happiness to everybody, that cannot be called an ethical work, because how I am working, from where I get the money and give people for the happiness. If I rob and get the money and provide the happiness, that cannot be called ethics. That cannot be called the ethical person. So how this work is doing? So not the result of work is ethical, but how the work is doing. That is called deontological ethics. Here is also some problem. What is the standard? How can we judge the standard of the work, whether it is good or bad? Who will judge it? Is there any standard of good and bad? Who is judging that? What is the standard? Who has fixed the standard? There is no any universal standard. Which is good for you may not be good for me. So there is no any, Swami Vivekananda raised this question, that there is no ethical standard, universal ethical or moral standard. So that is also why this work, how you are working, on the basis of that you are considered an ethical person or not, that cannot hold good because there is no any universal standard of work. So teleological ethics and the deontological ethics that cannot hold good, but it is important. The second aspect is how the ethical person depends on his or her being, how he is. So it is the subjective. So one is subjective, the ethics of being, and other is ethics of doing. And doing also divided into two parts, the result and the work itself. And there is some fault we have discussed. And the ethics of being, this is in ethical term, it is called meta-ethics. The ethics of being. It is called meta-ethics in scientific ethical term. It is called meta-ethics. So Swami Vivekananda's contribution in this particular aspect of meta-ethics, he actually combined this subjective and objective aspect of ethics. Before that, none actually combined these two things. Take the example. I have already mentioned that in the field of teleological ethics, the ancient philosophers worked, and in the field of deontological ethics, the ancient philosopher like Cynics and Stoics, they worked on it, and afterwards Kant, he worked on this deontological ethics. Kant's ethics is deontological ethics, and he worked on that. The work itself, ethics depends upon the work itself. And he created a standard of work. According to him, the standard of work, the standard of ethics, the standard of morality is, he said, categorical imperative. You know that. In Indian philosophy, the teleological ethics means the ethics of the result of the work and the ethics of the work itself, followed by the Naiyayikas. Naiyayikas were the group, so they accepted this teleological ethics, means the result. What is the result of work? Depending on that, a person is considered ethical or not. So this is Naiyayikas. And the Mimamsakas, they followed the deontological ethics. That means the work itself, how you are doing, that is the basis of considering an ethical person. So this is Mimamsakas. On the other hand, the ethics of being, that was followed by mainly the Advaita Vedantics. They followed the meta-ethics. That means they follow the ethics of being. And Swami Vivekananda actually worked here in this field. He said that what is the basis of this being? How? Is it possible? Why should we be moral? Because the morality is innate. It is inbuilt. But what is the proof of it? What is the proof of it? He replied that, from where does it come? He asked this question. From where does it come, this inbuilt sense of right or wrong, of good and evil? Or on what unshakable ground does it stand? He asked this question, and he himself gave the answer. He said, that our moral sense springs spontaneously, not from the fact of belief. It is not blind belief, but from the fact of oneness of existence. See, everything what Swamiji said had the basis of Vedanta. So he said, the oneness of existence, that is the basis of ethical, of being, the ethics of being. That is the basis of that. He asked, what is the reason that I should be moral? You cannot explain it except when you come to know the truth as given by Bhagavad Gita. He quoted Bhagavad Gita here, and he quoted the existence of oneness. Here in Advaita alone is morality explained. The others teach it, but cannot give you its reason. Why? Why should we do that? Let us see how did he explain this ethics and how he has combined these subjective and objective ethics of doing and ethics of being. Ethics also deals with the relation between morality and reality. Ethics seeks to find the metaphysical foundation of moral action. So one must be metaphysical, because this belief, if you see the history of ethics, you will find that the history, the ethics of the West is influenced by Christianity and Greek philosophy, Greek metaphysics and Christianity. Then, if you go through the Marxian ethics, you can find that it is heavily influenced by the materialism. So definitely that ethos, which is called ethos, so it is influenced by ethos. Ethos is the term, I would say, that it is actually the way of thinking of the people, the society. It is the characteristics of spirit, the moral values of the society. And that depends upon the culture. And that is always connected with the metaphysics. So human consensus, it is connected with metaphysics. Always it is connected with metaphysics. So metaphysics has a tremendous influence on ethics. And so ethics has the connection with the metaphysics, and knowledge of this foundation of metaphysics strengthens our will and gives us the courage to follow moral codes of conduct. Now, let us see how did Swami Vivekananda combined this whole theory of ethics of doing and ethics of being. Swami Vivekananda's ethical concepts were based on ancient system of philosophy which is called Vedanta. Speaking about the need to have a strong metaphysical foundation for ethics, Swamiji said, I quote, "My idea is to show that the highest ideal of morality and unselfishness goes hand in hand with the highest metaphysical conception, and that you need not lower your conception to get ethics and morality, but on the other hand, to reach a real basis of morality and ethics, you must have the highest philosophical and scientific conceptions." He said that please do not bring down the morality and ethics to your own level. Rather, you try to elevate your philosophical level to the height of ethics and morality. So he said, the ethics and morality is based on metaphysics. Why did Vivekananda say that? He said, because in India, it had been hailed for centuries the highest metaphysical principles of Vedanta were beyond the realm of ethics. So what he did actually, he combined in this way, made the high philosophical, metaphysical concept into practical application. So this is on the other way, the existence of oneness. He brought down at the level of practical way of doing it. There is one very important thing he said. What is the basis of it? Swami Vivekananda said that the expression of oneness is what we call love and sympathy, and it is the basis of all our ethics and morality. He says that unselfishness is the morality. Why should we become unselfish? He said very two fundamental things. His ethical theory based on two fundamental things. One, love, and another, unselfishness. From where love comes? Oneness of existence. From where this unselfishness comes? From oneness of existence. So from oneness of existence, he brought the concept of love. From oneness of existence, he brought the concept of unselfishness. So this unselfishness and love is the basis of his morality. That is the standard, universal standard of morality according to Swami Vivekananda. He says morality is unselfishness. Let us see from where it is coming. And it is true, you see, if we unselfish, if we work selflessly, completely without any self-interest, that is ethical. And that will give people. Then the work, if we completely unselfish, we cannot cheat because we are giving. We cannot take for our own motive. We cannot rob to fulfill our own desire. So that is the unselfishness. So that is the basis of ethics. Again, love. Love is the basis of ethics. So these are two fundamental things. And by these, we can combine teleological ethics and deontological ethics, ethics of doing and ethics of being. Let us see how did Swami Vivekananda brought this concept of love from oneness and the concept of unselfishness from the oneness of existence. Swami Vivekananda said, according to Vedanta, true love is not a mere emotion, but the experience of identity with our other selves. He says love is unity. Love unites. Love makes us one. Parents with their kids, husband with their wife, clearly he said that. So, love makes us one. So, this is the basis of love. When this experience is direct towards the universal self or God, it becomes devotion or bhakti. This love, when directed towards God, it is called bhakti. Man's love for man and man's love for God are thus inseparably linked to each other. So why love is coming from oneness? So love is not the cause. This oneness of self generates love. We are one. Because of that we love. Why love comes? Because we are one. Why we love each other? Because we are one. Love is not the cause. Because we are one, that is why we love. Generally, we just turn it. We say we love because we are one. It is not true. We are one. That is why we love. Union of selves is the basis of love. We don't want to unite because we want to become unite. We don't want to become unite because of love. We unite because oneness of selves. So we are one. That is why we love. The love comes from this oneness. That is the basis of ethics. If we love, we will be ethical. If we can love everybody, we will be ethical. That is the basis of our ethics. Love. And from this oneness comes this unselfishness. Why we love my friends, my neighbor? We are one. That is why we love. That is why we are unselfish. So the basis is that. In this way, the human love and the divine love is completely vanished. The one love, there exists only one love. Because that love, the sense of love, is coming from the sense of union. That is what he said. So Vivekananda combined these two principles, the work of doing, the ethics of doing and ethics of being, into a twofold motto for the Ramakrishna movement, for one's own salvation and for the welfare of the world. So he combined these things. So one's own salvation. This is the ethics of being. And for the welfare of the world, the ethics of doing. So he combined it, ethics of doing and ethics of being, in the Ramakrishna order as a motto. Service to man is a service to God. And it is connected with the fundamental dictum of Veda, thou art that, tattvamasi, you are that. So it is supported by Vedanta. His ethical philosophy is supported by Vedanta. Now, what is the impact of it? Swami Vivekananda said in Thousand Island Park, he said, in the universal melody, 3 ideas stand out. Only 3 things are there in universal melody. Number 1, freedom. Number 2, strength. And number 3, sameness. Freedom, strength, and sameness. Everything is coming from the concept of oneness of existence. Let us see what is the implication of Swami Vivekananda's ethical theory. So what does it mean? According to classical ethics, there are 2, ethics of doing, ethics of being. There is always these 2 groups are divided, and they never, in ethical, traditional ethical field, they never be combined. But Swami Vivekananda did it. Not only that, his concept of ethics based on oneness of existence. From oneness of existence comes the love and the concept of unselfishness. That is the moral basis of all ethical standard. And what is the effect of that? The effect of that is morality is without fear and compulsion. Sometimes we cannot be moral because we are afraid of these things. So I said, one of the answer, why should we be moral? The answer is because of punishment. Here, there is no question of any fear. The why should we be moral? The answer provided by Judeo-Christian and Islam tradition is that we have to be moral because that is God's commandment. And any transgression of God's law will bring divine punishment. Hindu and Buddhist and Jain traditions hold that we have to be moral because that is the way to live in harmony with the natural law of dharma. And any transmigration will bring karmic retribution. In other words, traditional morality is based on fear and compulsion. But Swami Vivekananda, he said that there is no fear and compulsion, fearlessness. Why? Because this unity, to whom we fear, from where fear comes, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says that fear comes from 2. If there is 2 persons, then there is fear. If there is oneness of existence, from where fear will come? Fear comes from 2. Even from our shadow. Secondly, satisfactory philosophy of work philosophy. From this ethical law, work philosophy comes. There is a work philosophy, All work, individual and collective, must be based on sound ethical principles. There are at present three main philosophy of works. Number one, capitalistic philosophy of work, given by Karl Marx. Then, Swami Vivekananda's philosophy of work. And the third one, Sri Krishna also gave the philosophy of work. So, these are the three main philosophical work. Capitalistic philosophy of work, Marx philosophy of work, and Swami Vivekananda's philosophical work. But Sri Krishna also in Bhagavad Gita has given the philosophy of work. Vivekananda's philosophy of work offers a much better alternative. Vivekananda also spoke of self-realization as the goal of life, but for him, work is only one of the several means of achieving that. Vivekananda held that it is not the social conditions, but inner detachment and purity that are important factors in self-realization. We are doing karma yoga, but not the work. In the process of work, internally, we are becoming detached and pure. Because of that, we will be liberated through karma yoga. So that is the important thing. For Vivekananda, work is not only a means of self-realization, but also means for social service. This is the work theory, work philosophy of ethics Swami Vivekananda gave. Then, service as a way of life. This also comes from oneness of existence, self-sacrifice. And lastly, the courage to be. It gives us tremendous courage. He said, weakness is the one cause of suffering. We become miserable because we are weak. We lie, we steal, kill, and commit other crimes because we are weak. The remedy of weakness is not brooding of our weakness, but thinking of strength that is already within us. What Swamiji advocated was not the strength to fight and quarrel, but the strength to forbear and to forgive. This strength comes from the awareness of real self. It is this courage to be that we need to face the problem of life and to live and serve. This is the existential strength. Comes from this oneness of existence. It is very, a person may be devotee, bhakta, but that doesn't mean that he or she considers himself or herself as a spirit. Sometimes we confused. I may be a bhakta, I may be a devotee, but there is no harm to consider myself as a spirit. Not the body, not the mind. But how we can do that? That is a $1,000 question. who can comprehend this Advaita? Is it possible to comprehend that oneness all around? Is that so easy? Can we do that? Let us consider even an intellectual understanding of the unitary nature of self gives us the idea that at the center of our being is consciousness. Intellectually, we consider it. What gave us the concept that we are weak? What is that thing that gave us the conviction that we are sinner? What is that gave us the conviction that we cannot do this? What is that? What gave us this kind of conviction? Negative conviction. Our thought. Our thought gave us this negative conviction. We cannot do that. We are limited. If that negative thought gave us this kind of conviction, negative conviction, then some positive thought that we are spirit, we are eternal, we have immense strength, we are immortal, there is no death, no fear. So that kind of thought also can give us this positive conviction. So that's the way we can start with. So this is the unique theory. If we ask now, what shall we do then? What is our duty from this moment? What shall we do then? Intellectually we have understood that, but what shall we do practically? This is what we shall do. Listen the voice of our own self and arise. Nothing less than that will work. Think it again and again and listen the voice of yourself and arise. That is what we shall do. No theory can provide you the real transformation. So these are the spark to light your within. And then you can do the thing yourself. ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात् सर्वस्तरोतु दुर्गानि सर्वो भद्राणि पश्यतु सर्वः सद्बुद्धिमाप्नोतु सर्वः सर्वत्र नन्दतु दुर्जनः सज्जनो भूयात् सज्जनः शान्तिमाप्नुयात् शान्तमुच्येत्य बन्धेभ्यो मुक्तश्चान्यान् विमोचयेत्. May all be happy. May all enjoy good health. May all see happy events. May all be freed from miseries. May all be freed from dangers. May all realize what is good. May all be actuated by noble thoughts. May all rejoice everywhere. May the wicked become virtuous. May the virtuous attain tranquility. May the tranquil be free from bondages. May the freed makes other free. May the Supreme Spirit, the presiding deity of all sacred activities, be satisfied, for he being pleased, the whole universe feels satisfied. Peace, peace, peace be unto you all. Here are few announcements. Next Sunday, November 8, we will have a Sunday lecture at 11 a.m. virtually on our live streaming. The title is Harmony of Religions. Swami Prasannatmananda will deliver the talk. And you know that this year, because of this unprecedented situation and COVID pandemic, we are unable to hold our Thanksgiving event in our San Jose house. Instead, we are holding a virtual Thanksgiving Day spiritual retreat on 26th November, Thursday, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And that is the Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga as preached in the Bhagavad Gita. So that will be our theme of retreat. So you have to register. So I think those who are getting our bulletin, they have already got the information. So those who are interested, please register. Because after that, we are going to send some handout. So please register quickly so that we can send the handout. Thank you. Take care to stay safe.